If you're a health of a life coach who's trying to grow your coaching business alongside managing all of the other things that you've got going on in your life, then in today's episode of the show, I'm going to break down some top tips and strategies to help you successfully grow a coaching business while balancing out all of the stuff that you've got going on behind the scenes. Let's dive in. Hi there, welcome to the Wholehearted Business Show I'm. I help heart-centered and highly sensitive health and life coaches get more clients, grow their businesses and live the best lives while they do it. And today on the show we're talking all about how do you grow your coaching business while also balancing out all of the stuff that you've got going on in your life. So whether you have caring responsibilities, whether you have children, whether you have a whole other career going on as well while you're growing your coaching business, no matter what it is that you've got going on behind the scenes, today we're going to talk about some strategies, some tips and ideas that you can use to help you still successfully grow a coaching business, even if you've got a lot of stuff going on that you also need to give your attention and time to as well. As a coach who has always grown their business alongside my caring responsibilities, I was a mum when I started my coaching business to a very, very small child at the time when my son Finley was born, all the way through to now being a single mum and running my coaching business alongside looking after my two children. I know what it's like to have to juggle things, and I know it's even harder if you are also working another job alongside trying to grow your coaching business too. It can be really challenging to try and do what you need to get done to make your coaching business grow when you don't have loads of time, and even when your attention's been pulled in lots of different directions. I also know from working with lots of my clients that it is really tricky as well when you're also having to balance doing other work alongside your coaching business while it grows enough to be financially sustainable. So we're going to talk about all of these different topics today and how we can balance all of this out so that you can still grow a coaching business that's actually going to work. Before we get into that, I have created a new weekly checklist with all of the tasks that you want to be ticking off to keep your coaching business ticking over and growing alongside doing all the other things that you've got to do. Check out the link in the description to download it. If you get confused about what you should be working on each week, if you're not sure where to put your time, this is really, really going to help you. So check out the link in the description to download the weekly checklist for your coaching business for free. So my first tip for balancing life and running a coaching business is to really connect with why you want to have a coaching business in the first place. It is really, really difficult to invest the time and attention and energy into your coaching business without a really strong reason why you want to do that when lots of other things are trying to get your attention away from doing your coaching business. It's really natural, like we tend to invest our time and energy where it's most urgent. And if you don't have an urgent need for your coaching business, and this is one of the tricky things when we are first starting out usually, is that if your coaching business is not yet financially sustainable or not financially in a place where it's going to actually meet all your financial needs, usually there's something else going on that is having to meet your financial needs in the meantime. And what that means is that there's not actually any urgency to having to work on your coaching business because you don't currently need it to make money. So sometimes this is a bit of a weird one to feel out. Sometimes people work really, really well without that urgency, but sometimes people kind of need it. So what we want to do ideally is just really connect with the reason why this is so important to us, because we're going to have to come back to that again and again. Even when the business is really financially sustainable, we want to have a really compelling reason why this is important to us, why we want to invest time in it, because this is probably on top of like lots of other things that you've got going on. So to make you sit down and do it, having a really big why and really connecting in with why that's important to you is going to be so helpful to make sure that you actually sit and put the time in when you are having to balance lots of other things as well. The second tip is to come to terms with the fact that it is going to take you longer to grow. Now, I know that this is probably not what you want to hear. I totally get it. But realistically, depending on how much time you've got to invest in your coaching business, it might take you a bit longer to grow. Now, when it comes to how quickly people make money in a coaching business, how successful they are, how quickly that happens, there's lots of different variables that come into that picture. How much money you've got to invest is one of them. How much time you've got to invest is another. How many connections you have that already exist within the niche that you want to work in, that's another thing. How naturally being on social media or being doing other forms of marketing come to you. You know, how skilled you already are in different ways of working in a business. All of these things are going to have an impact. So this is not the be all and end all. But I think for a lot of people, it can be really helpful to just accept that there's going to be a pace and they're going to be where they're at when they're there. And that's kind of what it is, because if you cannot spend because you've got children who obviously you want to look after and take care of and spend time with, or you've got a job that you have to work at because you need to be financially sustainable, or you've got a job that you want to work at because you need the finances for that to live your life, it probably is going to take you a little bit longer, and that needs to be okay, because I think where sometimes people get really caught up here is that they think, right, well, I'm going to get clients within however many months, or this is going to be doing this thing really, really quickly. And the reality is that actually it might take a bit longer than you think it's going to take. And I think it's better to have that attitude that it might take a little bit longer than be disappointed when you don't get where you want to be quicker than it is actually realistic to do so. And again, it depends on so many variables, and without knowing everyone's individual circumstances, it's really, really difficult to put a time frame on that. And again, the online business space is changing all the time, but I think it's really helpful to just accept that your pace is going to be your pace. And yes, if you can spend a bit more time, if you can find pockets of time, which we're going to come on to in a second, that's amazing. But ultimately, if you do not have hours and hours and hours and hours and hours a week to spend on your business, it's probably going to take a bit longer. However, there are some things that we can do to speed things up either way, which we're going to get onto in a second as well. The third tip is to remember that it's not so much about time, it's about consistency. So this is a really interesting one, and I know a lot of people struggle when it comes to showing up in a consistent way. And there's all sorts of different things that we can talk about and approach differently when it comes to consistency. But what I will say is that rather than getting worried about the time that you can invest, really think about what is a level of sustainable consistency that I can achieve in my coaching business right now, because that is going to make a bigger difference than investing loads of time and just still not being consistent and showing up in a consistent way. So what's actually consistent for you? How can you show up with consistency? And this really comes into one of my, really big tips for a lot of things. And that is, instead of managing your time, manage your energy, because all of us have got a finite amount of time, but we can actually manage our energy in order to maximize the time that we have. And again, there's all sorts of different ways that you can look at this. I've been talking about energy and energetics recently as well, and that's definitely one of the hacks that we can actually utilize here. But we really want to be thinking about, how can we be consistent? What does consistency look like in the time that you've got available? What's realistic? What's sustainable? And aim for that rather than trying to spend loads of time and just not really hitting the mark. I think focusing on energy and consistency over time is a really, really good thing to do when you're balancing a lot of stuff that you've got going on in your life as well. The next tip is to get really smart with the time that you've got available to work on your coaching business. Now, what this might mean is that you identify the specific time slots when you are free to do work on your business, depending on what you've got going on. So if you work part-time, you might have Thursdays and Fridays available for your business. And it's about diarising that. It's about committing to that time. It's about letting people in your life know, hey, on Thursdays and Fridays, I'm working on my coaching business. That's what I'm going to be doing. Even to the point where, if you've got friends who maybe don't quite see your coaching business as a business yet. And I mean, that's a whole other conversation we can have about how frustrating and difficult that is. But if you have people who maybe don't necessarily respect that time, call it something else. Tell them that you've got an appointment. Tell them that you're working on your day job or whatever it is. Find strategies to make sure that time that you are diarising and committing to for your coaching business is protected. And again, there is an energetic mindset element to this, because you need to have that attitude that if you're going to have a successful coaching business, you need to start to treat it like a successful coaching business. Now, this is not the same as faking it till you make it, because that's about kind of doing a false version of who you are. This is about the way that you show up. It's not about presenting something that's not true, but it's about treating your coaching business with respect and with the energy and intention that it needs to get to where it is that you want it to go. So figure out what time slots you have available each week. If you can, put them in a calendar or diary. Communicate with people around you so they know that those times you're not available. And also, what can be helpful is thinking about the environment that you're working in. So if you find it really, really difficult to work at home, go out to a coffee shop, go to a co-working space. The environment that you're in can be really helpful to kind of get you in the zone. And sometimes people find that switch up is useful, especially if you are balancing other things that you've got going on. I had a client who used to, on a Saturday morning, her son was with her husband and she would go to the library, and that was her coaching business time. And it worked well, and she got a lot done in that time. So find those slots, diarise them, communicate them with people, and then look at the environment that you're in. And that's really going to help you actually utilise the time that you've got available, even if that's not a lot of time. And then the next tip is to have a plan. One of the most difficult things that happens when you are balancing life and running a coaching business is when you sit down, you've got some time to work on your coaching business, but you haven't got a bloody clue what you need to work on. It is so frustrating. It's so difficult, and it means that you kind of lose a bit of momentum. You lose a bit of that flow that you might ordinarily have. So it's really, really tricky. But when you have a plan and you kind of know, okay, so the tasks for this week are X, Y, and Z, and I know that this is exactly what I'm going to do in this time slot that I've got available, that's going to make you so much more effective. You don't actually need like loads and loads and loads of time to be effective in your business. And yes, just like I was saying at the start of this episode, you know, having a certain amount of time does make a difference on how quickly you can grow. Like there is a relationship between that, but it's not the only thing that you can play around with. If you have a small amount of time, but you're really focused and you know exactly what you're doing and you've got a plan so that you know that the tasks that you're doing are designed to get you where you want to go, then that is going to be super, super helpful. If you struggle with having a plan, if you struggle to sit down and know what it is that you're doing, first of all, go and download that free checklist for each week, but also come and chat to me, you know, chat about working with me, come into Wholehearted Business, which is going to be opening in March. I'm going to talk a bit about that at the end. Come and join the waitlist for Wholehearted Business, because that's what we work on, is making sure that you know when you sit down to work on your coaching business, you know what you need to be working on, because that is such a massive waste of time when you're faffing because you haven't actually got a plan. So have a plan, know what it is that you're working on, sit down with your time slot and get shit done, and that is going to help your coaching business so much. The next tip is to batch your tasks when it makes sense. So if anyone's come across batching, it basically means doing multiple tasks of the same kind of nature at the same time. The kind of productivity advice goes that when your brain is having to switch between doing different tasks, it wastes a little bit of energy each time you do that. Now, hands up, I will say I have always struggled with batching. I'm trying to do it better. This is the second video in me trying to batch some videos today, but I'm probably only going to get 2 done today because I've not used my time. Ironically, as I'm recording this video, I have not used my time. We're going to come on to being gentle with yourself, guys, in a second. But if you can batch tasks, so if you can sit down and write all of your email newsletters for the entire month, that can be an example of batching. If you can sit down and record multiple videos at once so that you don't have to put your makeup on, you know, multiple times, that can be really, really helpful as well. If you can batch, you know, even if you can kind of sit down and like do all of your kind of network marketing stuff, if you can reach out to all your DMs on LinkedIn or something, that's a good way to do it. So where you've got tasks that aren't urgently like needing to be done on a certain regularity, if you can batch them, it can be a really great strategy for getting more done in the time that you've got. And it also just allows you a little bit more flexibility with how you kind of plan your time in. So for me, my hope with batching, she says, you know, I'm hoping that 2026 is the year that I will nail batching. And just to say, this is a great example of how a lot of productivity advice doesn't work for everybody. And I also should say as well, really important, but there's a lot of productivity advice out there. And yes, some of it comes into balancing, you know, life and things like that. My tip would be not to take productivity advice from someone who doesn't have a life that looks like yours. So if you have a completely different life to mine, I might not be the best person to give you advice. It's a bit like there's a lot of men who have a wife at home who is doing all of the domestic labour, who sprout productivity advice, and they've got no idea what we are trying to do when we are managing children and all of the care responsibilities and all of the admin that goes with that, you know. And I should have said this at the start, but I'm also the chair of the PTA, and I'm a parent governor, and I'm a single mum, you know, and all of that stuff. And it's a lot. And I mean, I am lucky that obviously my coaching business is my full-time gig, so I don't have another job in the mix of that. But, you know, take productivity advice from someone who's got a similar setup to you, or else it's sometimes just really not very realistic, shall we say. But batching can be helpful. And like I say, it's something that I know will be helpful for me when I just kind of find the right way of approaching it. And it stops you feeling so reactive as well. I think what I find was when I do batch well, the problem that I have is that I have to be really organised ahead of time in order to batch, certainly with these videos, for example. So there's an organisation that has to happen before the batching. So I share that just in case this is a helpful tip for anyone actually. But think about batching, but also there's probably some batching of the things that need to happen before the batching, is what it looks like in my life. That sounds really weird, doesn't it? But, for me, I probably need to batch the writing of the notes for the episodes of the show before batching the actual videos, and that's probably going to make it a bit more effective for me. Again, there's lots of other productivity tips that are similar along lines to this, but it can be a helpful thing to look at if you have limited time and if you're doing all of that life balancing with your business as well. And then the next tip is to look for hacks that are going to increase the speed of your coaching business growth. Now, these are not really hacks technically. They are just things that you can do that are more proven to have a faster result. One of those things is using paid ads. Now, the difficulty with this one is that it comes with a big learning curve and an ad cost investment. And what you will often find, and this is why I said at the beginning, that people's rate of success is often linked to not just the time that they've got available, but the financial resources they've got available, the people that they already know, all these kind of things. But one of the things that you can do is look at paid ads. This is why I teach it inside Wholehearted Business. This is why I actually do it for my one-to-one clients now. I actually just do the ads for them, because it is one of those things that can get you much more speedy growth. It's not going to solve all of the things in your business, not by a long shot, and it has to be used alongside other things. But it is something that will help your business grow faster. But again, there is a financial investment in having to do that. So a lot of the things that are going to speed up your growth often come with the caveat that there's more investment potentially financially. I mean, another thing really on the lines of this is that when you don't have a lot of time to grow your coaching business, and let's say that, you're balancing out your children, maybe you've got a part-time job, you want to grow your coaching business because you're really passionate about coaching people, you love your area of your work, your niche, you know that having a full-time coaching business would be like absolutely amazing. So you're really motivated to want to make it work. Like making sure that you're spending time doing the things, like being really laser focused on what we know is working better. If Instagram's your thing, make sure that you're really learning how to use Instagram properly. Because I think what often happens for some of us when it comes to like getting that faster growth is that we're not quite dialing in the strategy that we're putting in place. And when you have a bit more time, you can kind of take your time with it. It's taken me a couple of years to actually start posting clips of this show as YouTube shorts, and eventually I will post them as Instagram reels. And it's taken me a really long time. If you are trying to grow your coaching business in less time, do not wait. You might have to push yourself out of your comfort zone a bit more quickly. And maybe that's another kind of hack to think about is, those areas where you're kind of shrinking back a little bit, you might have to push yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit more quickly. But I mean, like I say, paid ads is probably one of the things that will get the volume of people into your business much more quickly than anything else that exists at the moment. So that would be my tip. And like I say, it is part of why I teach this and everything that I offer in terms of the programs where you've got access to me, because I know how effective it can be, and it is the missing link for some people at the moment. So paid ads can be a growth hack that you might want to get into if you are balancing out running your coaching business with lots of other things and therefore don't have loads of time. And then the final tip is just to be gentle with yourself. This can be hard. This is difficult. If it was really easy, like loads of people would be doing it. And yes, there are lots of people trying to grow coaching businesses right now, and that's okay. But like, it is hard, and it is going to take resilience and perseverance and dedication and all of those things. But it is 100% worth it if it's the right thing for you. And the good thing is you will discover if it's the right thing for you while doing this balancing act. So just be gentle with yourself. Know that you're doing enough. And like, I think this is another thing, sometimes, especially when we are balancing lots of other things, like there's always something else that you could be doing. Even for me right now, I work like probably 20 to 25 hours a week in the coaching business. There's always going to be something else that I could be doing, not working full-time hours. Some people work 60 plus hours on their coaching business. I physically don't have the time to do that and take care of my children and sleep. Like, I just don't physically have the time to do that. So it always feels like there's something else that I could be doing. So being gentle with yourself and knowing like you are doing as much as you can do in the time that you've got, and that is going to have to be enough. And like, yes, there's all these things that we can do. We can, try and be more productive. We can make sure that we're diarising our time. All that stuff's really going to help. But ultimately, just being gentle with yourself and knowing that you are doing the best that you can do right now. I think that's so important as well. So there you go. There's a bunch of tips for when you are balancing running your coaching business with also having a life and having care and responsibilities and things. And just to say, again, I know that this is difficult. A lot of my clients are in this position where they are trying to grow a coaching business alongside having a really full life, and it brings up some difficulties. It really, really does. It brings up a lot of feeling like you're not doing enough. It brings up feeling like you're doing things too slowly, like all of that stuff. And it is really, really tricky, but it's not impossible whatsoever. And especially if you've got support while you're doing it, do go and check out that weekly checklist, because it will give you a flavour, if at the very least, of the kind of things that you can be working on each week that will help your coaching business grow. If any of this stuff is resonating for you, please do go and check out Wholehearted Business. We don't open until March, but you can come and join the waitlist. You'll be the first to know when the doors open, and you will also get a waitlist bonus. So please do come and check that out. A lot of the women that we've got in that program are in a similar position in terms of they are balancing a very full life with care and responsibilities, with other things going on, and they are growing their coaching businesses and sharing their wins and their struggles along the way. And I think it's really great how much we can learn from each other in that group. Is amazing. The things that come up and the support that everyone gets in that group is absolutely fantastic, and it really just helps you get a bit of momentum going. I've been really lucky that I've been able to be full-time in my coaching business kind of since 2014, when I had my son. Is when I was, kind of went full time with it, and I've been extremely, and I always say I've been really lucky, but actually a couple of people have pulled me up on that, and they say, no, Laura, you're not lucky, you've worked really hard. And it's like, actually, I have worked really hard, and I've gone through all of the ups and downs, and I've done all of the emotional stuff, all that kind of stuff. But it's so worth it when you get to this point. Because for me, it was about, when I initially wanted to start a coaching business, it was about, I want to have time to be with my son. Like, I really don't want to be having to leave and go and do a job that I hate. I don't want to have to not be with my son and not do something that I love to do. And that was my initial driving factor, as well as being really, really passionate about health and well-being, because at the time, it was the thing that had completely changed my life. So those were the big drivers at that time. And then obviously once you kind of get into the position where it's your full-time thing, you are motivated to keep it going because it's the thing that's paying the bills, and that's great. But I'm so glad that what I haven't lost is the absolute love and joy that I've got for this work. I don't just do it because it pays the bills and it pays the mortgage and it keeps the roof over mine and my children's heads, which it does do, and that's incredible. But I do it because I absolutely love what we do, and I love the people that I work with, and I love doing this, and it's fantastic. So if you need a bit of a reminder about why it's worth it to do what it is that you're doing, to have your life be in your control, because I think this is the thing about running a coaching business. It's about you having that control over your life. Yes, it goes without saying that it's about doing meaningful, important, wonderful work with people who, are fantastic. Like, that's obviously the biggest part of it. But for me personally, it's like, I don't have to answer to anyone else. I can take a day off if I need to take a day off. If my kid's sick, I can go and sort my kid out. If I want to go and do a wild swim on a Wednesday morning, I can go and do a wild swim on a Wednesday morning. It is that freedom, and it is wonderful, and it's worth the slog. So if you're in the sloggy bit, I'm just saying, again, it's not that what I do right now isn't hard, and it has its hard moments, but it is worth the slog to get to the point where things feel more cozy. Again, I talk a lot about building a cozy coaching business, where things feel a lot more cozy, a lot more gentle, a lot more sustainable. Like, that's where we want to get to, this cozy coaching business that is, really sweet to our nervous system. Like, that's what I want for all of you guys. And, hopefully some of these tips are going to help you along the way to that. But again, this is the core of what we teach in Wholehearted Business. It's about helping you set up the systems, the engine that is going to keep your coaching business running over, so that you can have like this freedom, this cozy coaching business, as I like to call it. So do check out Wholehearted Business, and like I said, do download that weekly checklist as well. So there we have it, guys. I really hope that has been helpful for you and giving you some things to think about if you are in that position where you are balancing your life and juggling your coaching business at the same time. If you are watching on YouTube, please do leave me a comment below. Let me know what your main takeaway has been from this episode of the show. If you're listening on the podcast, pop me a DM on Instagram. I'm at wholeheartedlylaura, and I will be back next week with another episode of the Wholehearted Business Show. I will see you then. Take care. Bye.